Hello, I'm Jamie and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking about the potential that there may be another American Taskmaster. So there's been lots of rumours about this online and lots of things to speculate about. So yeah, this is going to be talking about what would happen if there was and why people think that there may be another American Taskmaster. So to give you a bit of background, if you don't know, America did do an adaptation of Taskmaster a few years ago, and to say the least, it wasn't very good. There were lots of issues with it. They made a lot of weird changes. I have done a full video on this if you want to watch it up here. But to kind of summarise, there were lots of issues with it. For example, they shortened it to half an hour, which I just don't think is enough time for Taskmaster. Because they did this, they also took away the prize task, but did a weird thing where per episode one person brought in a prize. It didn't really work. They also had completely all repeated tasks, which isn't necessarily a problem having repeated tasks, but it just kind of showed there was a lack of creativity there. They just took every task from the UK Taskmaster and just copied it identically, and it just didn't work for me. I also think the contestants weren't that strong. Individually, there were some that I liked, but I think they included 2, maybe 3 people who weren't comedians, which I just think wasn't the best move for the first series of a show because it's a comedy show. It works better with comedians. There have been some absolutely amazing non-comedians on Taskmaster and they have been great, but starting off a comedy show with at least 2 people who aren't comedians, it's just not going to work. And at least for me, people in America might have known all the contestants, but I only knew one person on there, and ironically, he was from the UK, and he was an actor, he wasn't a comedian. It just didn't really work from that point of view. I don't think there was any big names drawing viewers in, and yeah, that coupled with the fact that it wasn't that entertaining, it wasn't that good, it wasn't a surprise that it wasn't successful. Also, in my opinion, there was one very, very unlikable contestant on this as well. I think, again, they went with somebody who has quite an offensive style of humour, and to me, that doesn't fit with Taskmaster. I think people who tend to go for more dark humour can adapt to it. I do think Frankie Boyle was alright on the UK Taskmaster, but she didn't dial it down. She was very offensive, she's very rude, especially towards Alex, and not in a fun, making fun of the assistant way. And there was also a moment where they did the pizza task where they had to call up and ask for a pizza without saying the ingredients, and she was just incredibly rude to the person on the phone, and overall it just left a really bad taste in my mouth. I didn't like her, and it really, really dampened my view of the show. But the general consensus is that it wasn't good anyway. Alex also served as the assistant in the US one, which I get why he wanted to be involved, but I don't think that was the smartest idea either, because he's not really that well known in America. Wasn't at the time. He is a lot more well known now, but he wasn't really known at the time, and I don't think he is the typical. He doesn't have that a typical American humour, and that he works in the UK. But I just didn't think at the time, especially, he just kind of stuck out a bit. He was just very different humour from the rest of the people. And also, he did have to take on a lot of the responsibilities because Reggie Watts wasn't that great as a Taskmaster. I feel he didn't really have control over it, which makes sense because I guess Alex had all that control creatively and also as almost the main presenter on the show. I do think though Reggie Watts would have made a good contestant, but just not the best Taskmaster. That's most of the reasons why Taskmaster America wasn't successful. There have been lots of people who have made some of the videos on this before, but yeah, that's just an overview if you were unaware of it. I'm sure it's probably still out there for you to watch if you wanted to give it a go. There are some good moments and there are some good contestants, but yeah, overall it was a struggle for me to watch, and I wouldn't recommend it. But as I said, there have been a lot of rumours and a lot of speculation that there is going to be a new Taskmaster remake in America, and I'm more hopeful this time than I was when it was first announced, and there are a few reasons for this and a few reasons why people are thinking that there is going to be a remake. The biggest one is that Taskmaster has become very, very popular in America now. This, I would say, started in lockdown. I think people were searching for things to watch and people found Taskmaster, and because it is such a light-hearted, cheery, nice thing to watch, it just really helped people in lockdown. So that's one reason why it started to gain popularity, but since then it has just skyrocketed, and a big part for this is Taskmaster's push to kind of make it more available internationally. So a big thing they do is they put it on YouTube the day after it airs in the UK, which means that people in the UK and in America, for example, can all watch Taskmaster at the same time, which is such a good idea, and I wish they did it for all the other international versions. But yeah, so this allows the Americans to watch it at pretty much the same time as us. So it builds that community, and people are able to watch it live, one episode a week like us, rather than wait for it all to come out and then watch it whenever it goes onto whatever streaming service it can go onto in America. YouTube is also free, and I know obviously you have to watch ads, but it's a free thing for people to watch. So if people don't want to pay for another subscription service, they don't have to. They can just watch it on YouTube and just watch the ads. And so it's a great way to get more views on your show, and it's a great way to get it more well known internationally. It's become so popular in America that they decided to have their premiere of Series 17 in America, in New York City, which was just like insane to me, knowing that it's a UK show. Its biggest fan base is probably still the UK, but it's got so big over there that is where they chose to have the premiere. And like it sold out instantly, and there was issues with like overselling tickets. Like it is very, very popular. So there is obviously a huge market for Taskmaster in America. Greg and Alex have also been doing a lot of promo work in America. This kind of came about the time about the New York premiere, because Greg and Alex did go to that premiere as well, I was so jealous of all the people who got to go to that. Greg and Alex also appeared on the Late Night with Seth Meyers show, and just their clip of that, their appearance on there, has got 1.3 million views on YouTube. So if you add that to like all the people who watched it live, that's again just showing how many people are interested in Taskmaster in America. So big audience over there, a show that is gaining popularity. Why wouldn't they do a remake? The other little bit of news, which isn't as big as all the other ones, but it's just something that kind of draws it all together and draws into speculation about what the remake could possibly look like, is that Alex Horne met up with Sam Reich, who is the CEO of Dropout, which is like this online video subscription service where they have all their own original content, and has drawn similarities to Taskmaster in the past. So people do think there may be a little collaboration going on there. So if you don't know what Dropout is like an online TV channel, essentially. It started on YouTube under the name College Humor, which most people would be familiar with, but is now called Dropout. Dropout has lots of original shows, but I think one that's really gained popularity recently, and one that I found, was reintroduced to them too, was Game Changer. Game Changer has consistently drawn comparisons to Taskmaster. It is a game where the game changes every time. So the contestants that go on, they don't know what they're going to be doing. Essentially, they've been set in a task, and Sam Reich is kind of playing the role of both the assistant and the Taskmaster. If we're drawing comparisons to Taskmaster, he's the one that judges them, and he's also the one that sets the challenges and makes the game. So obviously, when people see Sam Reich and Alex Horne together, people are going to think there may be a potential collaboration there. And when we think about the fact that Game Changer does like take inspiration from other TV shows and essentially does their own version of TV shows, for example, they've done Survivor and they've done an episode of like The Circle, essentially. They've renamed it and it is different. They make it their own unique thing. But because they have made their own versions of popular TV shows, people are thinking maybe they might make their own version of Taskmaster. The games that Sam sets are usually quite tricky. They have some fun twists and turns, and in some ways it's like he's excited to mess with the contestants. He's like setting out to mess with their heads, make them make mistakes, and just make them frustrated. I think there is one popular one that they've done a few times, which is Sam Says, which is basically Simon Says, but it's so difficult, it's so fun. Like, he is there to make them mess up, and it is absolutely hilarious. And they have done similar games to like the tasks in Taskmaster. One example is that they had like kind of an escape room one. It was called Escape the Green Room. And obviously Taskmaster have done escape room tasks in the past before. So if they were to do an adaptation, I think it would be fairly easy for them to do a version of Taskmaster. They also have given some solo tasks out, or solo games, or made games just to torture one specific contestant, and that's always really fun. And I do feel like all the contestants take it in good stride. They know to play up their competitiveness to the camera. They are just so like geared up and so excited for the game, and it's every time It's been amazing. Like, the contestants are all fantastic. They put so much effort in and they are not afraid to like humiliate themselves. So like any of them would fit in perfectly to doing Taskmaster. So that's a little bit about Dropout. I highly recommend watching it, especially Game Changer if you're a fan of Taskmaster. I have talked about it a couple times on my channel now. There are some free episodes on YouTube for you to watch, but I would recommend subscribing to Dropout if you can afford it. It's only about £5 a month. And there's so much stuff to watch on there. I love Very Important People. That's probably my next best one. But yeah, there's so much things that you can watch on there. If you like Dungeons & Dragons, they've got tons of stuff on there as well. So what could a remake look like? There are a few different ways that they could do a remake in America. So one way would just be doing like a standard remake where they hand creative control over to like a production company and they find their own Taskmaster, they find their own assistant, they find their own contestants, and hopefully they have their own original tasks. I do think having original tasks works best for the international versions, especially because why hamper yourselves with what other people have done, and why not just set out and be creative and bring fresh minds to the show? Like, I personally have been finding that the international versions of Taskmaster, particularly New Zealand and Australia, have had some absolutely fantastic tasks. And just when you think like, oh my gosh, we've had like 17 series of Taskmaster, how are they still coming up with tasks? And then the New Zealand team come around and they've brought in all these new fresh ideas, then you didn't think there could be any more ideas for tasks. So I definitely think having original tasks in your series is the best way to go. I think if later on in the series you decide that you really want to do a task that another version has done, then yes, take that and make it your own. That's absolutely fine, but don't rely entirely on the tasks that have already been done. I do think there are lots of comedians and celebrities that would be really good on Taskmaster. I think America does have a really good like improv culture, and they have lots of good stand-up as well, so they definitely could get some good comedians on the show. They've also have fantastic like sketch comedy. You know, you think about SNL, that's great, or at least like, I mean, I haven't really watched it recently, but you know, that was the peak of like sketch comedy in America at one point. And like I said, they have a lot of improv, so I definitely think both those styles of comedy work for Taskmaster. And I know there are lots of comedians or celebrities that people have pointed out to be like potentially good assistants or potentially good Taskmasters. So they have a lot of options for people who could be involved. And I think now, especially as Taskmaster has grown, like I've said, in America, then they will be able to have that kind of name recognition to pull in those big people, those people who are going to be fantastic. There is also the option that Greg and Alex could host like a one-off special with American contestants in America, maybe to set up the potential of a new Taskmaster remake, especially because Greg and Alex are now well known in America through Taskmaster. I think Greg was probably known somewhat in America. I don't know, he's done a lot of TV shows, but I don't know if they're viewed in America. But let's assume that just Taskmaster has made them very prevalent in America now. And I do think that they could fit in with American humour. And I think it would be kind of fun to, you know, mix the UK and American humour. And I think having both Greg and Alex there, they have that relationship, they have that banter between them. And I think having that rather than just having Alex with somebody that he's never worked with before, you know, they weren't able to get that relationship going because, and I think especially because they were quite different people, it didn't work in the way that Greg and Alex like work with like contrasting each other and things like that. So having maybe both of them there with American contestants, maybe as, like I said, just a one-off series, that could then, you know, maybe go into a proper remake if they perhaps didn't want to dive back into doing a full proper remake. But one thing I think would work really, really well is to have Dropout do the remake of Taskmaster. And there are a lot of reasons for this. The contestants already work really well together. Say if we went for just the Dropout cast at the moment, being the contestants, they've got lots of choice, and I think they all kind of know each other. They've all worked together. They have that great relationship. They'd be so competitive. They kind of know each other's weaknesses, and I think that would just work really well together. And I know that they do work really well together. I think that is where Dropout is at its prime, is because they have that relationship and they really bounce off each other really, really well. So I have seen people say that maybe the individual tasks wouldn't be as effective, but I don't think so. I think especially if they've got like Sam there as the assistant or something, that they could still have that person to work off of, and I do think it would work really well. They already have a great host. Sam Reich is a fantastic host. I personally think if they were to do a Taskmaster remake, he should take on the role of the assistant, because he is just so good at setting those tasks, at tricking people, messing with their heads. So I think he would be perfect as the assistant. And I don't know who they could get for like the Greg Taskmaster persona. Maybe bring in somebody. But I just think that he is just fantastic. He's so good, and I think he's just got that great personality as well. Also being like tricky and having like the contestants already like hate him, but not really, like, you know, they mess with him in return as well. So he can definitely take it as well as hand out and mess with them like they mess with him in return. So they've already got that relationship there. I also feel like because of its online community, because of its like almost like grassroots thing, it feels like Taskmaster would be going back to its roots, which is somebody that just had a great idea and just likes having fun with comedian friends. So I feel like we'd get that really nice feeling that we had at the start of Taskmaster, where it's like, this is something great, this is something new, they're creative, they're just there having fun and doing silly stuff on TV. And I feel like they would be able to replicate that a lot more than like a more commercial remake. And also being online, I do think they would have less restrictions, especially because they have their own streaming service. They wouldn't have these restrictions to do with like ads or making the higher up corporate people happy. They have full creative control over like their subscription service, their channel, their advertisers. So like they could be riskier with it. They could do more daring things. So I just think it would really work. And especially because, as I said, most of American people are watching Taskmaster on YouTube, Dropout being on YouTube as well would have you have that initial audience. And obviously, as I said, Dropout already has a very big fan base, so they'd already have those initial viewers. They wouldn't have to perhaps spend so much money marketing. They could build up their viewership on YouTube and Dropout and then maybe extend it to more traditional TV. They also have less restrictions on people watching internationally. Dropout, I believe, is available in every country. It's at least available definitely in the UK. So they have viewership internationally rather than just in America, because especially if it aired in America, we'd kind of be in a similar situation as what we are with like the New Zealand version or the Australian version. The fact that there is no legal way a lot of the time to watch those shows. They have been starting to slowly bring them over to the UK, which is fantastic. But there is, when it airs, people in the UK can't watch it, and people in the UK want to watch it because we love Taskmaster. Yes, like they could just, they would have that international viewership already, which I think is such a great asset to be able to market your show and give your show to people in like every country in the world is so valuable, and I definitely think that it would be a great option for them. They also have links to bigger celebrities already, like Howie Mandel, for example, featured on one of the episodes. So they have that pull, and so they could bring in some bigger names if they wanted to gain an audience of people that weren't watching already on Dropout or on YouTube. So they could get those like other viewers in already. And I guess there is also the potential that they could air on traditional TV. I'm not sure what it's like in America. I don't know. I think it works well as a subscription service. And they have already beginning to start getting like nods for like Emmys and things like that. So they are gaining that more like critical reception as well. So they will be able to pull in names, I think. And I just think they have a built-in audience, they have a built-in streaming service, and they have the same style of humour as Taskmaster. So I do think they could do a fantastic job at remaking it. Another option is that maybe they aren't going to do a remake with Dropout, but they could very easily do like a Taskmaster, few episodes of Taskmaster on Dropout, maybe involving Greg and Alex. So yeah, I definitely think there's potential there. I'm hopeful, but I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't happen. I know there probably is a lot of uncertainty about doing another Taskmaster America remake just because of how badly the first one did. So I definitely understand why there may be some hesitation there from kind of like the Taskmaster side of it. I do think if they were to do a remake, now is the time. They've got that popularity in America. They've got that name recognition. this is the time to do it, and I really hope they do. So I really want to know what you guys think. Do you think there may be an opportunity for a Taskmaster Game Changer Dropout collaboration? Do you think a Game Changer could adapt Taskmaster well? Or do you think that Taskmaster should go on more traditional TV like it tried to do originally? Let me know your thoughts. I'd really like to hear them. If you like this video, then please leave a like. It really helps the channel, and subscribe if you want to see more videos to do with Taskmaster. Have some more out for you soon. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!